I'm Amber from Amber's Crafts Week blog, and today I'm going to show you how I made this Alice in Wonderland inspired wedding sign. This sign making process was a bit of a comedy of errors. I would make a sign and then look at it and think about it and decide, nope, that's not the sign I want. And I did this multiple times over and over and over again. It took me a very long time to get a sign that I was actually happy with. I thought about just filming the final successful trial and using that as the video, but I think it's valuable to see that not everything I do comes out right the first time around. And I also think there are some good ideas in those other trials. This one was definitely the most involved, the most complicated of the trials. I used a laminator, so not everyone has a laminator on hand. I used some artificial flowers, which not everyone also has on hand. So I figured maybe some of the previous iterations of the sign would work better for you at home. For those reasons, I decided to show you the full process. So the first sign we're going to make is not the sign that we end up with. The second sign we make is not the sign we end up with. However, the sign making process keeps building so that by the time we get to the third sign, we've already done all the techniques we need for it except for the last few. So it's not like we have a whole different video each time. The first one, we basically make the arrow shape. And the second one, we figure out how to do the glitter letters. And then the final one, we put it all together into this lovely sign. With that said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Now, as some of you know, Brian and I are planning on getting married on May 22nd in what is now going to be a very pared down social distancing ceremony. So I've been trying to throw together a few last minute crafts so that we can have some decoration there. Hopefully next year we'll be able to have a much bigger celebration, much more decorated, and I'll be able to show you the whole slew of crafts that I've made. To make this craft you will need bright colored cardstock, a pencil, some scissors, some duct tape, and a signpost. You will also need some way to do your sign lettering, so either a computer or printer, or if you're comfortable with hand lettering, then you can just do it with a marker. So the first thing I did was I printed out my labels onto some cardstock, and I have 3 different colors here. So I have this pink one, I have a green one, and a blue one. I printed all 3 labels onto all 3 sheets, even though I'm only going to be using one from each sheet, just in case when I'm drawing my arrows I messed up something really badly. So I printed out text saying this way, that way, and wedding, and I'm planning on having the this way arrow pointing this way pointing that way, and wedding pointing that way. If you're doing this for a birthday party or a tea party instead, the last one could say tea party or birthday party, something like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try drawing on some arrows. So I'm going to do that real quick and then I'll be back. I've gone ahead and drawn my first arrow. I ended up using part of a ruler to help me to give me kind of a straight edge so my lines are nice and clean. So if you have a ruler on hand or any kind of straight edge, you could even use an extra piece of paper. That could help you get a nice clean line. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to cut out this arrow shape and I'm going to use it as a guide for tracing my other arrows. And once I'm done tracing, I'll be back. Alright, so I now have all 3 of my arrows cut out. From here, all we have to do is tape these on to our signpost and we'll be done. I will say that the sign we're building right now is not going to be very durable. So it should be good for a one-time use, maybe also a 2-time use. That's probably what we'll end up trying to do. But don't expect it to hold up through multiple uses. To attach these sign pieces, we're just going to cut off a little bit of duct tape, stick it to the back of the sign, and then stick that to the signpost. So I'm going to take this piece of duct tape, roll it up a bit. Take our first arrow and just stick it kind of in the center. So the center would be about right here. And then we're going to take our sign, and I'm going to say maybe we'll put it right about here. And then we're going to go ahead and line up the other arrows on this. Now this one is a little smaller than what I was envisioning, so you may want to make your arrows a little bigger, maybe print your paper landscape rather than portrait so you can draw larger arrows. But it should work for our purposes just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and add on our last couple of arrows and then we'll be done. So this is what our completed sign looks like. Now you can just stake it in the ground and guide people to the direction of your event. So this sign's probably looking a little bit different from the last time you saw it. I wasn't particularly happy with it when I finished up this first time. So I thought, well, I think the arrows are too small. So I made the arrows bigger, but that didn't really fix things. I think my issue is the darkness of the lettering. Like a lot of the signs I've seen online have like white lettering or something like that. To fix this, what I figured I would do is I'm just going to coat the letters in school glue and dump silver glitter over them and hope for the best. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I don't really have a camera stand that would work for this angle, which is why I'm not filming the gluing process, but I figured I'd show you. So I went ahead and I did the first letter, this T right here, and I'm thinking it's starting to look a little better. I'm not 100% sure, but I just want to show you. So I put the glue down, I sprinkled some glitter over it, and that's what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do this with the rest of the letters, and we'll go from there. So this is what the sign looks like now. It's still drying, but once it's done drying, I'll shake off the rest of the excess glitter. But yeah, I just wanted to update you real quick so I didn't like cut to the footage from the wedding and then you're all of a sudden like, that's not the sign that we saw you make. So same idea for the sign, but now a little more glittery because glitter makes everything better. Okay, so time for another update on the sign. So when we last left off, I just added some glitter to the letters of the sign. While I thought that was an improvement over the previous iteration, I still didn't love it. I didn't really feel like the color scheme fit with the vibe of the rest of the wedding. I thought it kind of clashed. And then the sign had a series of accidents. So I took off the top sign to use as a template, but they all kind of ended up getting warped and were not too happy from falling over. So the sign was in a sad state and I wasn't loving it. I decided that I wanted to try doing it over again from scratch. As for a color scheme, I decided to use my Maid of Honor's bouquet as a guideline. So you can see this has a lot of pinks and yellows and purples. So I figured I would make the sign in shades of pink, yellow, and purple. Here are what the new sign elements look like. I used the same shape, the same words, the same lettering style, so silver glitter. But now they're in a different set of colors, which I think fit better with the color scheme we're going for. I also had this idea that maybe I could add flowers to the ends of them. To this end, I cut a little X shape into this sign piece, and I poked a flower through it. So what I have to do is you go to the X, and you just press the flower in, and it sits right on there nicely. I really like how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and add flowers to the ends of the other sign pieces, and then we'll put the whole sign together. I went ahead and finished off the sign. I used the same method as before, so I just cut off some pieces of tape and used them to stick down the arrows for our sign. This time around I laminated the arrows so they're not warping like they did before. Also, I forgot to mention what I used to cut the little X's into the sign pieces. I just used a box cutter. So you could use a box cutter, you could probably also use an X-Acto knife. You just need something with a pretty sharp blade that's going to be able to cut through 2 layers of plastic and a layer of cardstock. Now if you're not laminating your sign pieces, then you could probably even just get away with using regular scissors, but an X-Acto knife or a box cutter will make a much cleaner cut and will be a lot easier to use in that respect. This is a lot more like what I was hoping for with the sign. On the whole, I think I'm really pleased with it. I think this is going to match our wedding vibe a lot better. At least I think it's a good match for Katie's bouquet. I think those are going to go really well together. Now after I went to all that trouble to get this sign ready, guess which craft did not make it onto our wedding day? If you guessed the sign, you are right. There also were a bunch of other crafts that didn't make it there, but this one I was making specifically for our smaller ceremony and didn't quite work out. What ended up happening was Brian forgot to get dressed or kind of waited until the last minute, and so we were late getting to the gardens. By the time we got there, I mean, we weren't late, but we were late enough that it was like we have to start the ceremony pretty much 5 minutes after we get there. Not quite, that's a little bit exaggerated, but I lugged the sign into the gardens. I couldn't actually bend over to do anything because every time I bent over, my belt popped open because my snaps were not the sturdiest. And so I just kind of like dropped it and left it for someone else to set up. And my sister and her boyfriend were so busy setting up our card soldiers, we at least got the card soldiers up. They were doing that, and Brian was setting up the Zoom, and just kind of like everyone was really busy doing those last final preparations before everything went live. So the sign just ended up lying on the ground, unfortunately. But fingers crossed that things will be better for next year and we'll get a chance to use it then. So I still think it's a really cute sign. Here's hoping that next year we'll be able to have our bigger wedding ceremony like we were planning. I guess it'll be a vow renewal at this point in time. And if I don't get a chance to use it right now, I can always redo the bottom sign piece and just, you know, replace it with like tea party or something like that. So it's not too big a deal. It's kind of funny that this was like the thing I put all kinds of effort into last minute and then it didn't even make an appearance. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, I'd love it if you gave it a like. If you want to see more wedding content or more crafts in general, then you may want to subscribe. You can also check out my craft blog, amberscraftweek.blogspot.com, which I'll link to below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.